Good to go, sir. Um, all right, so we're going to go through the just FAQs for the CSRs, customer service representatives. And I think we can just kind of get ahead and get started in here. Um, so Thomas, what reports should we be reviewing regularly to track performance, revenue, callbacks, completion rates, etc.?
Uh, yeah, so I feel like this is more of a business question than a service bridge question. Because it depends. I mean, you can literally make a report to track anything that you want. The biggest tip I would say is to make sure that you've got the infrastructure to give you the data that you want in the report. And
Mhm.
so, generally speaking, I would be tracking how many estimates I'm writing, how many leads or new customers I'm putting in, how many leads I'm getting, to be able to compare those two, and then how many new jobs I'm starting each month, the new
Yeah.
sales. And so you can run reports for all that. And there might be multiple ways to do that, but basically you can run a work order report for any of the captured revenue, basically, or the jobs, started or jobs completed, or, any of those specifics that you want to look at. You can create a new customer report as well. There might already be one in there by default,
Yep.
to see how many new customers you've put in for that period of time. And then you also want to run an AR report. So, aging, uh, past due revenue, or
That's
whatever
it.
you want to call it. So you can do that based off of, the due dates of the payments once you invoice the job.
Yep.
The the due dates settings start once the job has been invoiced. So if you have a customer that you finish the job, when you invoice them, if it's a due on, completion or due on receipt, um, then that'll say past due the next day, right? It'll say that it's past due. But if you've got a net 30 commercial customer, it'll be 30 days from the day that you invoice it. So
Correct.
just keep that in mind. But those are some of the basic ones. I don't know. Again, that's
No, no. I think when I was running my district, what we would do is look at our P&L, and whatever would impact the P&L is exactly the kind of reports we were running. Whether that is, sales or revenue, expenses, even just trucks and like gasoline usage. Like we were trying to do that, which obviously you can't really do on Service Bridge, but you're gonna have to kind of do your own audits, but use the Service Bridge tools that are there to track the ones that you can, right? The new customers, your sales percentage or your closing percentage, obviously your bad debt, and the money that's owed to you, and really just dial into the revenue, and just type of revenue per job per month, so that you can forecast for the future, right? If you know you did X amount of bat sales and quarter 3, next year in quarter 3, you're going to try and beat that. So,
yeah,
um, just, I think that's, there's
yeah.
a lot of tools to help you be successful in there.
And that may be, so I thought of another one while you were talking, but what you just said, you can create a year-over-year report. Of
Mhm.
course, if it's your first year, that's not going to be any good. But moving forward, if you want to do a year-over-year for that month or that day or that quarter or that week or whatever you want to do, you can make a report like that. And also, I thought about if you've got a lot of recurring customers, or even with your one-time exclusion work, stuff like that, if you want to track your callbacks, that's probably
Yeah.
a good data point. And you can generally, the best way to track a callback would be to have a specific line item that you use for those. Call it
Yep.
a service visit or callback. You call it a callback, whatever you want to call it. But if that's what you always use, if a route customer calls and needs an additional service or has a pest that shows up or whatever, then you can run a report, and it would be a job
Beautiful.
parts report, so that you would capture that line item and just say how many times was this used. Or if you want the data, you can say include the customer name and all that
Yeah.
other
The
stuff.
technician, the salesperson,
Right.
everything. So I think
And
that's
so,
perfect.
yeah, if you want to track your callbacks, that's really good. One thing that's good to remember with reports in Service Bridge, there's more or less two types of reports. There's summary report, and then there's the more detailed report. The summary report is going to basically just be a list of numbers. So
Hmm.
if I want to know how many roof vents that I sold last month, how many roof returns I sold last month, and how many foundation vents I sold last month. I can run a report that's a summary report, and it just has a line item and it has a total number. Has a line item, has a total number. You can do total dollar amount, but it's just a total, a number for that. If you
Perfect.
want more details, you would have to run more of a detailed report or create a detailed report that would include customer info, job info, like
Yeah.
you said, psych and all that stuff. So it's two different ways to go about that depending on what you want.
Perfect. No, I love that. All right. Next question. Is there a recommended process for handling refunds of partial payments through Service Bridge?
Okay, so uh, refunds and partial payments are two totally different things. I'm not sure
Hmm.
what we're really talking about here, but let's just talk about each one of those, I guess. So there is a preferred process for refunds. There's generally two types of refunds. One is a what's called a refund receipt, and one's called
Hmm.
an overpayment refund. So an overpayment means that the customer accidentally paid you too much money. You got to give them some of that money back. So the job was $500, and for some reason they wrote the check for 550, and you didn't catch it, so it hit the bank. You could do all the work and everything, and all of a sudden you realize, hey, I've got $50 extra on this customer's account. Whoops, they gave me too much money. So then you would go into the payment, start a refund from the payment screen, and select overpayment refund, give them that $50 back. And by that time, you probably have to cut them a check or you could give them
Yeah.
cash or whatever. And you're just notating. Essentially, it's an adjustment on the line item.
Yep.
Um, the other one is what's called a refund receipt, which means that they paid me the right amount of money. They just want some of it back for whatever reason. Took
Yeah.
too
We,
long to
we
finish the
weren't able to
job, or
do
they're not
part of the
happy,
job or
or
whatever.
right,
Yeah.
maybe we decided we couldn't do some of the job, whatever. And so in that case, you do the same way. You go to the payment, but there's not going to be an extra balance on the account in that case. It would be everything would be lined up. You would just have to go in and start a refund from the payment screen again, and then you would select the refund receipt option. In that case, you have to select a line item because that is a ledger adjustment. I think I misspoke earlier.
Hmm.
The overpayment is just giving them extra money back. So it's just a balance adjustment, basically.
Right.
But the refund receipt actually adds another line item in on the QuickBooks side so
Hmm.
that the ledger lines up, so that your accountant or whoever takes care of your books can see why there's $50 less than we were
Yeah.
supposed to have.
That's
So
brilliant.
you'll do it that way. You sometimes, if you took a card, you can just apply it back to the card. The overpayment works the same way, but if you give them a check or whatever, you'll just notate how you paid them.
Perfect.
So that's the refund. The partial payments. I mean, I think a lot of us take partial payments, so I guess I'm not sure what exactly they're asking about, but
Somewhat
basically,
like a down payment, right? If you
yeah.
take
So
50% and then the
right.
customer decides that they don't want to move forward with the job for whatever reason.
Oh, I got you. Okay. So if you've taken a down payment and then the customer decides, hey, I don't want the job
Hmm.
actually. So, okay. So two things. One, depending on when they say that, you might have to just give them that money back
Push.
and you might just void the transaction. If it's the same day, they call you back the same day and say, I don't want to do it anymore. That's probably just a void transaction that'll give them the money back, and then you change the estimate to lost, or
Mhm.
however you want to handle that, and then just notate that you're not doing the job anymore. If
Perfect.
you've done some of the work, let's say that you collected $500 of $1,000 job, and you've done some of the work, and then they end up coming back and say, you know what, I decided I'm not going to do this. I don't, whatever. You'll ultimately decide how you want to handle that from a business perspective. Um, if you're saying that you want to keep what they've paid you already, because let's say you've done half the work, and
Hmm.
you tell them, hey, I've already done half the work, you can't have that deposit back, but we'll just, you don't have to worry about the balance. Um, then you probably will need to do, um, because you wouldn't have invoiced it at that point, right?
Correct.
So you would probably just adjust the price on the work order, make a notation, so that way you invoice for the correct amount. That's a good question for Shannon, though. I don't know. Like, I don't want to be telling people to just change work orders or whatever.
Yeah.
Um, but ultimately we're only collecting half of that money, right?
Yeah.
So either you add a discount line item that says customer stopped, so customer didn't want us to finish, and so you reduce the $1,000 by half so that it only
Hmm.
asks for 500. But ultimately, you want that invoice to be a $500 invoice for the money you already collected.
Correct.
Just a side note, though, depending on exactly what the situation is, it might just be better to give that $500 back and say no hard feelings, because even though, yeah, you've done half the work, if they get really upset because they want that money back and you're not giving it back to them, the headache and heartache that they'll cause you
Is
of
way not
keeping
worth it.
customers from coming to you and writing bad reviews and all that stuff is worth giving them the $500 just so they'll, be relatively happy and not
Of
cause
course.
problems. So that's my 2 cents.
I could not agree with that last part more. That's perfect. How can we make better use of the customer portal to reduce confusion about appointments and invoices? Uh,
So I don't know specifically about reducing confusion about appointments and work orders. So in the customer portal, basically the customer is able to see all of the payments they've made, all the work orders for the work that we've
mhm.
done, and the invoices, as well as estimates. So I don't know that they can actually see like the appointments
No,
scheduled
they
in the
can't.
future. I don't think so.
So to
So I
me,
don't
this
know
is
that
just
it'll. Yeah.
make better use of a calendar. Like
Yeah.
you can
So that
share it
that's
with your
about
customer.
communication.
Like
Yeah.
just to me, it's staying organized and being on top of it. It's more organized that you are in the office as a CSR, the more organized your customers will feel. If you have answers for them, if you can share a Google Calendar with them that tells them, when we're going to be there, it's a simple email.
Yeah.
Even just screenshot the calendar and highlight where they are on the service. That's something we used to do is we would highlight the Monday when we go out to put up a one-way door, we would highlight again on Friday when we have them scheduled, send it out to the customer. And it was just a screenshot, Um, so I just think being organized and
Yeah.
kind of thinking outside of the box because there is only so much the customer can see on the
Yeah.
physical portal.
Yeah, and I do think there are some ways to maybe utilize the customer portal a little bit more effectively. So I fairly recently, earlier this year, found out that you are actually able to, your customer is able to approve or
Hmm.
accept estimates through the customer portal, but it has to be in the open status and you have to have sent it through Service Bridge. So sometimes if we don't do that, then they don't have the option of hitting like kind of the accept button
Hmm.
in the customer portal, but that's something that maybe you want to utilize to give them another option to say yes to us and to give us, their
Yeah.
business. Um, and being able to go in there and see the work that's been done, the payments and all that. There's a contact button in there that they can use to easily shoot you an email.
Mhm.
There's a request service button that'll send you an email. It'll also show up in your interface in Service Bridge on the website. So maybe just informing your customer, hey, you're going to get an invite to this. Make sure you go in there and check it out. There, it's basically just a way to get information and an easy way to get a hold of us if you
Mhm.
need to. That might foster a little bit more usage. I think mainly the reason that probably it's not as effective is maybe the customers just aren't using it because we're not setting them up to know that it's coming or to know kind of what's in there. So
Yeah.
customer portal is not like a magic button. It's not as robust as some other customer portals might be in other systems, but it does have some different options in there that can really help the communication interaction with the customer. But I really agree with what Robert said with the scheduling. You want to make sure that you've got your scheduling down pat, that your communication is clear with your customer. I actually really like the idea of adding a Google invite or an Outlook invite or some calendar invite that you can send them so that if they look at their calendar, they can see it on their calendar. That's not something you can do from within Service Bridge, but that is would be pretty straightforward for somebody in the office or somebody to add as part of the process. That's a really good idea, I think.
Wonderful. Let's see. Are there any automation tools within Service Bridge, like reminders or notifications, that we can better utilize?
So there's a couple things, I guess. They do have tasks that you can create.
Hmm.
I don't, it's not automated necessarily. It is something you manually create, but you can use templates and you can set a recurrent task. Um, so this is really good for stuff like warranty renewals,
Yep.
where if a customer's got a 1 year warranty, you can set a task for 11 months or 12 months or whatever you want to do from the time that the warranty started, that will remind you to call them to say, hey, Mr. Doroka, your warranty's coming up. It's going to be expiring next month. Just wanted to touch base. Haven't heard from you, so that's great. I guess you haven't had any animal issues, but I just want to make sure you remember that you can renew it for another year. That way you'll have that coverage and protection. It's however much, and you can go ahead and do that now. If you actually do it before it expires, we give you a little 10% discount, and you can do that today. That's a really good use of that, and I think that is again, it's not automated. You have to create it, but it is something, if it's part of your process, that can really help you not let stuff slip by or slip through the cracks. Um, and I mean, even stuff like recurring work orders is good for the monthly stops. I think most people use that.
Hmm.
But if you're taking care of a customer monthly, it's a wrap program or pest control or whatever, you don't want to have to be manually making that visit every month, like working off a list. People will get forgotten or it's very labor intensive. You can just
Yeah.
make a recurring work order. That way it pops up every month and you just maybe tweak the schedule, but the event is already there. The work order is already there. So that's a good one. And you can use tasks for other things too. It doesn't just have to be for the warranty renewals, but you can do that. It was something else I was going to say. What's the second part of the question? The oh, notification
Automation
template.
tools,
Gotcha.
notifications, or reminders.
Yeah. So there is an on the way button from the
Yep.
mobile app. I think that's something that I don't know how many people are using actively. We don't have the ability to customize the default
Hmm.
message. So some people don't like that, but you can, maybe have a note template or something that you use, copy that, and then just replace what's pops up automatically in the box. It's not too hard to do that.
Yeah.
The mobile app, your tech or salesperson, whoever, can hit on the way, say how many minutes away you are, and then it'll shoot a text, to the customer's number that says that. So, if you want a notification maybe the day before that you're coming, that's something the office, person or, somebody else can send. But during the day when the technician's on the way, they can call them. They could also shoot that text that says, hey, I'm on the way. That's a nice integrated way to send that. And I
Hmm.
think it's good for that communication as well.
And it works great. We've been using that a
Yeah.
lot.
Yeah. Good.
Can we customize communication templates? So we kind of just talked about this. What I do with my franchises that I do a lot of trainings with, especially when we're in Atlanta, with the new franchises, is I set up the text replacement. So on your iPhone or whatever you have, you can set up keyboard replacements. The one that I do for, like, say I get an email with a new customer. I do a dollar sign twice because I got money on the mind. Immediately, it's going to say, hey, this is Robert DeRocco with Critter Control Wildlife. Just want to let you know I got your information sent over. Um, I'm currently with another customer right now. As soon as I finish this inspection, I'll give you a call. Right. And so that way I can go from the call back within 1 hour to a text message sent within the first 10, you know, realistically 10 minutes. But
Yep.
it could be as fast as 15 seconds to send it,
Right.
if you get that email address, you click the phone number, press text and double dollar sign, press enter, and it's sent. It
Yeah.
takes no time at all. And the customer, that stops them from going to other places, right? And then we use it a lot for follow-ups too. The day after we send a text, it's I have the open parentheses for mine because it's a sad face. And so I'm sad I didn't make the sale yesterday. And this is how I remember which ones they are,
Yeah,
right?
sure.
So I'm sad I didn't make the sale yesterday. So it says, hey, this is Robert Droke with Critter Control Wildlife. If you have any questions about the estimate, I'm available. Please let me know. Reach out at any time. And then the
Yeah.
second day we call them because I always like to mix it up. And then the third day, it's I do the period, two periods, because it's the end of the sentence. It's the end of our time reaching out to them. And I always say, I introduce myself. I say, this is the last time I'm going to be bothering you. Just letting you know the estimate's good for 30 days. I'm always available if you have any questions or change your mind.
Yeah.
But have a great day.
Yeah.
And so that's my three follow-ups. That's how I do communication shortcuts. And it's not so
All right.
much on Service Bridge, but You could
Sure.
easily have up a notepad and have it change where you say, hey, instead of saying, hey, your technician's on the way, you can say, hey, Emilio, our technician is on the way. Make it a little more personalized and just copy and paste it into that sent,
Yeah,
message.
that's really good. I've talked in the past too about text replacement. I think that's a great feature.
Hmm.
Just make sure that you don't like. I like using double dollar sign or double period or something because I made one time that used the word roof and changed the word roof into like this
Oh no.
couple sentences. And
Yeah.
so I'll be typing something random and all of a sudden I'll put in the word roof, not thinking about it. And then boom, there's that whole thing. I'm like, crap. So yeah,
Yeah.
make sure it's something that you wouldn't normally just type in a message because it is going to replace all, that and all messages. Um, so within Service Bridge, there's definitely a lot of template and kind of pre-designed notes or options. Options. That's weird. Okay,
Yeah.
which is okay. Um, so for email specifically, we talked about emails. If you go into the company preferences, there's an email preferences section, and you can put in what you want the from name, the subject line, and the default um, uh, uh, return
Signature,
email address or whatever
return email.
be for sending estimates from the system, sending work orders from the system, sending invoices from the system, payment receipts. So if you want it to say something specific, and it also has dynamic text. So if you put in a square bracket and you put WO number, work order number, or maybe it's the little curly brackets, I can't remember. It says it in there. It'll put in the actual work order number from the work order that you sent. It won't
Hmm.
just say here's your work order. It'll say here's work order 27. And so that those options have been in there. If anybody wanted to, set up a different default email template for when you send an estimate or work order versus an invoice, you can do that. There also are a couple of places for note templates,
Hmm.
which note templates. If it's a job note template, it goes at the bottom of the estimate or work order. A lot of people use that for the service agreement language, but you can put any templated language in there that you want. You've got a disclaimer if there's something else that you want to put in on that document. There's also no templates for tasks. We talked about tasks earlier. So if you've got something that you want to put in the task that you write over and over again, you can put it in as a template. Um, and they also have things like job templates and other stuff like that. It's not maybe really what they're asking about here, but it's a way to pre-set up a specific type of estimate or work order. For instance, an initial inspection estimate, you can
Hmm.
set it up with a template, and that way it'll be the same always. I know you've used some of that templating for certain types of jobs, like if it's a
Of
bat
course.
job, you can use bat template, and you got all those elements that you want in there on the bat job that get loaded automatically, basically. So there are a lot of options for templates and things like that. There's also something. I guess this is a good place as any to talk about this, but there are custom fields in there. And a custom field, generally when you're in Service Bridge and you're creating new entries, you're just making new options for an existing data point or an existing blank, I'll call it. Um, but if you make a custom field, it makes a whole new blank. And so
Hmm.
you can put in any type of data, any type of information for your customers, for your employees, for a job, for a product or service. There are custom field options for a lot of different things in the system. And if there's something you want to track or something you want to notate and there's no existing kind of blank to put it in, you can make your own blank with a custom field. So I
Perfect.
think that's an underutilized feature that is really flexible. If there's something that you want, to track some kind of data you want to track, it's a good way to put it in.
Absolutely. All right. What's the best way to balance technician schedules to minimize drive time while keeping customers happy with time windows? Is a 2 hour time frame good slash recommended? So I love the 2 hour time window. We have the 8 to 10, 10 to 12, and so on. Um, we're trying to avoid what Mark Blonsky used to call being a star technician, right? So it's don't start here and then go here and then go here, and just bounce in a star all day, make a loop and your drive time is lower. He said, well, let's be a circle technician, not a star technician. And that really stuck with me. And obviously it goes with routing and making, having, hopefully having some flexible customers and just making sure that the routing that we're doing is based off of drive times and not customer preference. If we give them a couple of hours but we have to look ahead and see, okay, we have this customer in city A and this customer in city C and then another in city A. We have to do the kind of the pregame and think about where we're going to send our technicians first. Whether it is sending them out to city C first, that's fine, but then you're going to have to knock out the two at A at the end of the day, or it's A, and then C. Like you have to really use the map, use the routing technology available for us. I like the 2 hour window personally because I believe that it gives all of our technicians and our inspectors time to drive there, make the phone calls, the hey, I'm on the way, or the follow-up phone calls or new customer phone calls, and get the service done within that 2 hour window. And it gives us enough time to have longer drives, but then the shorter drives as well.
Yeah. So there's two, maybe three different types of scheduling that we're talking about. And
Hmm.
you kind of, I feel like you kind of went to sales, which makes sense because you're in
That's
sales,
yeah,
right? so
that's exactly
so
me.
we could be talking about the salesperson's schedule for initial sales inspections. We could be talking about a route technician that's running recurring route stops, and we could be talking about more of a universal tech or a wildlife tech or a exclusion tech, whatever you want to call it, that's doing new starts, exclusion work, bigger jobs, right? Those three things are scheduled pretty differently. And so I like, Robert, what you said about the salesperson. I like a 2 hour window that includes drive time. If your person, most territories, and it depends on where you're at, but most of the time there's not more than a couple hours, maybe 3 hours spread
Hmm.
from really the main part of the territory is usually an hour, hour and a half. And you might have some outlying areas that take longer to get to. But you just have to consider that, right? And so if you have, like Robert was saying, city A and city B, then okay, all my sales in city A's are Monday, Tuesday, or Monday, Wednesday, Friday. City B is
Yep.
Tuesday, Thursday, unless it's an emergency. That way they can be much more efficient and stay in an area. But sometimes you can't do that, right? So what I would say, and Robert kind of mentioned this, and we'll circle back to this with the other two scenarios, but if you go into the scheduling section of the panel on the left-hand side for Service Bridge, we've got a few different options. You've got the calendar or the dispatch just to look at the schedule itself, which is certainly a way that you could do it to see where the open slots are. But if you want to consider the geography, there's a mapping tab and there's a tracking tab. Both of those show a map, and you can look at a day and see where that technician is going to be for that day. And you can put in the address and it'll drop a map pin in the tracking one. You can put in the address, it'll drop a map pin so you can see where their stops are for the day. And then here's this address that I'm trying to schedule. Okay, it's pretty close to the ones where they're going to be, so I'm okay to schedule it on this day. Or it's 2 hours away, and so it's not going to fit into this day, even though I've got a 2 hour block open. I'm going to need to put it for the first job the next day so they can head out there and do that in the morning, maybe at 10 instead of 8, since it's
Right.
going to be a 2 hour drive. And so you can use the mapping functionality and the scheduling functionality for that. Route technicians is different because they're going to be, they're going to be at a job for 30 minutes or less.
Yeah.
And a lot of times, if you're able to, that might include the drive time too, because you want them to be clustered pretty closely. So, whereas a new sales inspector might do 4 to 6 new inspections a day, a route tech might do 15 to 20 stops, right? So it's
Right.
not a 2 hour window.
For my route
So
technician customers, for my route customers, like I wouldn't tell them a 2 hour window. I would just tell them a day. I would
mhm.
say, hey, Naomi's going to be out on Tuesday.
Yeah.
And
Well, and that would depend, kind of like what you said about the customer's willingness. So you might have some route stops that you do need to schedule and go inside,
of course,
if it's a specific thing. But as often as you can, yes, schedule it as an outside service, anytime service, or where you can have access to where you need to be getting into, so that you can just fit it into the schedule the best way that you can. And if you do have those few customers that don't want that, or it's a specific service that requires an interior inspection or some type of service, that's the exception. That's the outlier. And so you'll directly manage that one more to see where it can fit in. But with the route stops, there is an optimization feature in that tracking tab So if I'm in the tracking tab where I can see the map and I go to my stops and I pull up a specific day in that tracking tab, I can see all those stops and it'll show me the drive and all that.
Hmm.
And I can optimize it. There's an optimize option on that tab that will rearrange those in the way that it fits the best. And so you can do that and then save it, and it'll reorganize for the drive. And so it does have some optimization in there.
Yeah.
You can't just optimize the whole month or anything like that, but you can look at a day. So that'll be something that you all will be looking at. Maybe for the week, look at everybody's schedule and optimize each day and make sure it's as good as it can be, and then we can address things that come up as they come up. And then for that last one with like a new service or an exclusion,
Yep.
you're gonna have to manually do that because you might be there for 4 hours, you might be
Oh,
there for an hour, you might be there all day.
yeah.
You don't know. It just depends on the job. So
Absolutely. We would kind of have our jobs broken down into 2 hours, 4 hours, 6 hours, 8 hours. And like
yeah,
sometimes, my tech was out there the whole day, and that's okay.
yes,
It's
yeah.
just you have to schedule around it and move some stuff if you need to. All right. So, any service bridge tools or features that can help us optimize routes? We just kind of talked about that.
We're good.
Is so automatically, and how is it set up for a month prior, right? So, um, I don't know if they do the whole month at a time, or if it's just the day. I'm pretty sure it's just the day.
Yeah, it's just today. So if you go in and you look at stops that you have for the day
Hmm.
in the tracking tab, you can select what team you want to look at. So the team is the employee. And so if you want to just look at Team Robert, let's say we're looking at Robert's route, I would just select Team Robert and I would look at a specific day. So to optimize, you have to look at one day. So
Hmm.
I would change the date range to be one day, and then that'll show me where all the stops are in the order that they're in. And then there's a route drop down, and there's a checkbox for optimize routes, and you would just hit save route, and it would, or you hit the route button rather, and it would reroute it, and then you could save it. So
Yeah.
you should be able to use that to optimize the day. You do have to do it day to day. There's also the map tab, the one underneath that, uh, gives you the drive time. So it shows you that Gantt view where it's just a timeline view with the map above it. So you can see where all the stops are and you can see where the appointment is and the little gray bar for the drive time on each side. So that's a visual representation of where everything is. I don't think you can optimize it from this page. You have to optimize it from the tracking, but you can at least see where the drop times are. If you need to manually scoot them apart or something, you could do that, or rearrange them. You could do that as well. So, a
It's
couple
perfect.
different ways to potentially, yeah, optimize the route.
Let's see. How far out should we be scheduling recurring services, monthly, quarterly, annually, to stay organized, but stay flexible for changes?
Personal preference. So, a,
Absolutely.
cu- a couple things with recurring routes. You want to be continually trying to scoot customers up in the month, so you're doing them earlier each month. So really what you want to try to do as much as you can is to try to schedule a monthly customer every 3 or 3.5 weeks, because then let's say I start my customer today's the 29th. Let's say I
Hmm.
start my customer today. um, well, next month I might want to do them. Today is a what is it? A Wednesday.
Today's a
So
Wednesday.
yep.
May
So I might want to do them on
on the
the 19th,
Yeah.
or maybe the 26th. Even that's a few days earlier, but maybe the 19th if they let me. So that way, it's not at the very end of the month. The reason you want to do this is with your route customers to be able to adjust and compensate for things that come up, like you asked. You want to have very little scheduled at the last week of the month.
Right.
And so if I can get 80-90% of my route done in the first 3 weeks, that fourth week, I can handle callbacks, I can handle new starts, I can, you know, plan for the next month, or I can maybe try to sell a little extra something or whatever. You're not bogged down those last few days of the month trying to run and run and run and get those route stops done. So ultimately, when you organize and when you schedule is up to you, but I would try to continually front load the month. And so schedule them instead of every 30 days or 4 weeks, it's 3.5 weeks. So you're creeping them up over the course of 3 or 4 months. Even if they started the last half of the month, they'll now be in the first half of the month, and you'll have more space at the end. Um, what I would do at the end of a current month, I would try to roughly organize the month for the next month, um, at least where my people are going to be at each week, right?
Hmm.
So maybe there's northeast section, northwest section, southeast section, southwest section. There's first half of the first week I'm in northeast, second half I'm in northwest, third half I'm in southeast, fourth second half second half of second week I'm in southwest. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So now I'm in all the different parts over the first couple weeks. I can get a lot of those stops done. And then I'm going to revisit. Then I'll do north side again, first half of the third week. I'll do south side again, second half of the third week. That way I can get a call back if I need to. That way I can, whatever. So you don't necessarily want to knock all the services out in a part of town in one day or a couple days, because then if you have to go back there and you're not going to be there again, it's kind of more of a pain. And so you might want to spread them out a little bit that way, but generally like rough it out by the end of the previous month. But then you want to really kind of hone it in at the beginning of the week for that week. And then it's still going to let you adjust, right? So
Of course.
even if you've got pretty full days, you'll be able to move things around and adjust things if needed. But that's what I would typically do. Robert, you got a lot of experience with
Yeah,
running
yeah.
that. So
One thing I loved is, as you said, is like having that last week of the month open, whether that's for trapping or getting a head start or whatever. But what I loved that because I would use my route control technician, my pest control guys, as kind of an entry level. That's where I'd bring them in. They can kind of get a feel for being on the road all day, every day, meeting a lot of customers, having that customer service interactions with those guys. But I would use the last week of the month as kind of a training for them. If they wanted to go into sales, I would have them go ride with salespeople. If they wanted to go into management, I would have them sit with Langley, my service manager, and just learn about what they do for their job. Same thing with my animal control technicians or my exclusion technicians. They would go and help out on jobs. So they would use that last week to kind of decide where they wanted to go within our company, um, because we're always looking to if somebody wants to learn and learn a skill, whether it's management or sales or exclusion work, and they're putting in the time and the effort to do it. I want to give them the opportunity to step into that. And like a perfect example is Naomi. Naomi was a route technician for me. Her customers absolutely loved her. We had her doing trapping, we had her doing a whole bunch of stuff. She got really interested in training and said, "Hey, like whenever we have training available, I'd love to like help out on that last week." And now she's the field trainer for the district, the district field trainer. So um, that's a an opportunity for you guys to teach your youngest people on the team or your newest people, the greenest people, a new skill, whether it's trapping moles and voles or helping with exclusion or even doing sales inspections.
nice. Yeah.
All right. So how often should routes be reviewed or adjusted? Daily, weekly, or monthly?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, whenever they need to be. You should always check your routes and make sure everything's good every day. For the next day, for the day you're on, it should be, your technician route should be reviewed every week. Make sure on Monday that they have their route set up. But for salespeople, like you might not have 5 days worth of sales lined up. It might just be a day and a half or two. If we're doing it correctly, we should only be a day and a half or two. If you're at five, you need to hire a salesperson, right? Um, so
Yeah,
yeah,
and
the
I'll
answer is
say,
yes. You just
yeah,
just
it,
always
like
be
Robert said,
reviewing it.
it depends. But I would say is so.
Oh, one second. My
There,
dog is dreaming and yipping by me. Bella, Bella.
no worries.
Don't want her to be on the camera.
That's all good. I could hear. So,
Oh, okay, good.
so each month, hopefully you'll have new, let's say for a recurring route, you have new sales each month that'll need to be incorporated into the route for the
Yep.
following month. So there are a couple ways to handle that, right? If you have a new sale, let's say that I sell a new job today, that's a monthly service, so I know I'm going to need to go next month. I'm going to create that recurring work order when I make the sale. I can go ahead and see where that's going to fit in when the sale is made that day and put it where it's going to be, and then it's ready to go
Hmm.
each time that sale is made. Maybe you've got one or two a day, three a day, five a day, 10 a day, whatever. And you can do that for that day. Go ahead and stick them where they go. Or when you get toward the end of the month, you can find all the new sales and then you take them all and kind of fit them in where they want to. It's going to take
Yeah,
longer in that moment. It might be maybe take half the day to get them all done instead of a couple of minutes for one. So that's two different ways to do that for new sales, but that is one major consideration of adjusting the following month's route is
hmm,
everything that was new that was sold that's a recurring service. I need to figure out where it's going to go in the next month's route, and that's going to involve knowing when it was sold because you can't go 2 weeks later. I said you
right.
want to move it up a little bit, but you still got to give them, 3/4 of the month at least, so they don't feel like they just paid on the 30th and now on the second you're coming back to do the service. They're going to get upset. So there's different considerations that go into that, but that's the big
Exactly.
thing.
Let's see. Are there route planning reports that we can use to identify inefficiencies and overbooked areas? I like that question a lot. Um,
um,
I don't know about reports, but I
Identify.
think
Yeah,
honestly, just talk to your technician.
yeah,
Talk to your technician, talk to your people. And they'll let you know. Trust me, they will let you know.
yeah,
And if they say, the way that I kind of interpret that question is, I've had people who we that were being that star, right? They spent all day in Williamsburg, and then they had their last job in 2 hours away in Virginia Beach. Okay, well then the next morning, the first thing they were doing is going to Virginia Beach. It was like that customer could have been moved
yeah.
for the next day, right? So looking at your route, looking at your calendar, looking at your map, and it's I don't know if there's so many, if there's actual tools. Um,
Yeah. So you can build reports again, like I mentioned at the beginning of this. You can basically build reports for any of the data that you want to
mhm,
see. You just need to determine what data is going to be useful for you. So if I'm trying to understand where most of my route customers are, for instance, for route efficiency, or to know what area of town that I'm spending the most time in, or something like that, that's easy, right? I'm going to run a work order report to see, the work orders that include that, recurring service, or however I
right.
identify those recurring customers. I could do it based off of the category of the customer, or the line item that I use, or job category or whatever. But I'm going to run a report to identify those, and I'm going to include the zip code, and then I'm
Hmm.
just going to sort by zip code and say, okay, I've got 27 in 30062, and I've got 50 in 3067, and I've got 5 in 30157 or whatever. And so then you'll be able to tell, okay, half of my stops are in this one
Hmm.
zip code, and then I've got a few here and here and here. So what you do with that data, ultimately, where the question is coming from, is identifying opportunities for improvement. You have to decide if there's opportunity for improvement or not. Just because you have half your stops in the zip code, again, that doesn't mean you can knock that whole zip code out in 2 days.
Right.
You probably need to go one week, and then Monday the next week you can go to that zip code again. You'll just be in that zip code a few times, whereas some of the other smaller pockets, you might just go there once and be done. You can
Yeah.
decide that. But I love what Robert said about communicating, and this kind of goes back to some of the other questions as well. If you talk to your employees, they'll tell you, hey, I feel like I'm bouncing all over the place. Is there a better way to do this? Or, I was here yesterday and now I'm here again, and now I've got to go back tomorrow. Do we need to be in this, one stop today, one stop tomorrow, one stop the next day, when we could have done all three of those in one day? That kind of thing. They'll let you know that if you communicate with your people.
Yeah. And just being on top of that and wanting what's best for them. I'm all for it. Um, do we have any recommended best practices for assigning work zones or territories to technicians? Yeah, wherever they live. That's
Yeah.
That's what I would do, like, and we would specifically target and hire in those areas, um, where I live and where I ran my district. Unfortunately, we have a lot of bridges and a lot of tunnels to get from one area to the next, and it takes hours to get through the traffic. So I
Yep.
would hire north, I would hire middle, and I would hire south. Um, and that's just kind of how I would do it. But what do you think?
So in Service Bridge, this may be what they're asking more specifically. There's a function called working zones,
Hmm.
where basically you can select a set of zip codes, and I'll call that, like you said, maybe this is North City, and then you've got Center City, and you've got South City or South Side, North Side, whatever. And so you can take whatever zip code you want to be included with that Northern Territory and incorporate that into the Northern Territory or North Side or whatever
Yeah.
zone. Then you can connect a zone to an employee to say this is maybe their primary zone. There are a couple considerations there. Kind of like what Robert said, you don't always have somebody that can only stick here, right? Especially if you're a smaller operation, you can't have your only salesperson only cover this set of zip codes, right? They're your only salesperson, or you can't have your only technician only cover these set of zip codes because they're your only technician. And so there is an opportunity to use those. I think generally it's more effective when you have maybe multiple employees, sales or service, um, so that you can maybe identify, okay, Thomas's territory is the east side of the city, Robert's territory is the west side of the city, and you can kind of set that up. That doesn't have to be done in Service Bridge, although you can create those working zones, and then kind of have those connect to a specific individual.
Mhm.
But then again, if I'm out sick, well, guess who's
Yeah,
getting
I'm
the call
covering
on
both
the
sides, right?
on the east side, Robert, right? Because I'm out. So um, I like what Robert said. Identify maybe if there's enough business in a certain area to have a dedicated person there. You could have somebody that, maybe a main person that covers the heart of the territory, that's the most dense business. And you have another person that has some of that, and then they also go and run the far out stuff. Or maybe you split that, right? Maybe you give each of them half of the main territory, and then they cover the outliers to the east, they cover outliers to the west. It depends on your geography, it depends on the density of calls and customers, and it depends on what your people do and how you set up their job role basically. So as far as the function itself, it's a good function. You can set a certain zip codes to be in a working zone, and then you can use that working zone in Service Bridge to indicate who needs to go there or whatever. So I
Perfect.
like the question as well. It's a good
Yeah.
question. Yeah.
Let's see. How do you document customer specific instructions, i.e., locked gates, pets, etc., so that techs never miss them?
Yeah, it's a good question. Uh, there are a couple ways to potentially do this. You can set in the notes.
Hmm.
So there's a private notes tab that the customer doesn't see. That's generally where I would put any tech specific information,
Hmm.
like the customer's dog is aggressive, be careful. You don't necessarily want to put that on the customer, where the customer can see it. They may get offended because Fluffy is the nicest dog in the world and it would never hurt anybody. Um, but you could also, so that's on the actual work order or the estimate instructions specifically. That to me is ideal, especially if it's a recurring service, because if you put it in those private notes on the work order, that's recurring work order, it'll be on every single one that they go
Hmm.
to. You don't have to manually put it in. You could also just put it in the customer's account notes. Those can be seen from the mobile app as well. So if you want to put it on the customer's account notes, that way you can see it, but the tech can also see it. They would have to know to go and see it, though. I think it's probably more likely that when they open the work order to complete the work order, they can see that there's a private notes tab and they can see the notes in there, and that'll just, again, it's a standard that you set as far as making it easy to not forget. You set that process. So if
Hmm.
you want to put it in one of the notes tabs, you just make sure all your people know, always check that note tab, and then they'll always see it. if there's a one-off thing, something that's very specific, you could also do a task. We talked about tasks earlier, but you can assign a task. Let's say I want Robert, when he goes out the first time to this big new commercial job, he's got to remember to get some type of paperwork or something, right?
Yeah.
So maybe I just assign a task to Robert for the day that he's going out there, and he'll see that he's got a task on his tasks tab. He can open it up and it'll say, Robert, get the paperwork from,
Easy
Big Ink.
money.
And then that'll be a one-off. But if it's something that's like a gate code or something like you mentioned, I would put it in the notes of the work order, probably the private notes. That way the customer doesn't see it. You can put whatever
Yep.
you want.
Yeah, and I would just have it, become standard practice to have all your technicians, your salespeople, your route technicians, just to check private notes on every job. There might not be something, but just in case there is, I had an instance once where it says, "Do not ring the doorbell. Baby is sleeping."
Yeah.
Immediately got there, rang the doorbell. Guess
Yeah.
what? We didn't make the sale. Like,
Yeah.
it's if we would have checked the private notes, of course we would have seen that. It's small things like that, but it makes a huge difference.
There
Uh
is one more thing that I could mention
yeah,
on
yeah.
this. If it is something that maybe you do want the customer to see, there is something called a to-do task
Hmm.
that you can put in. You can kind of put it in like a checklist. So if you always want the technician to leave a door hanger or something like that, or to leave the some kind of printout in the customer's front door or something like
Hmm.
that. You can make it a checklist item that does show up on the printed work order so the customer sees that we do it every time. Or maybe you even need to input a note about where you put something, where you left something that you leave the customer, fresh
Right,
baked cookies or
right.
whatever. Um, you can put a note in there so that the customer does see it. You can do that in the notes as well if you wanted to, but there's a to-do list item that you can make kind of like a little checklist, and
Mhm.
it's pretty easy to use for the technicians.
That's perfect. And then our last one, what are some tips on scheduling around seasonal trends? That's a good one.
Um, well, we've had a lot of scheduling related questions, so I guess I don't know if there's anything Service Bridge related, or if this is more just best practice.
Hmm.
But generally, you want to over communicate around holidays,
Yep.
so we're almost in Halloween right now, but Thanksgiving is next month, Christmas is the month after, or maybe it's Hanukkah or some other major holiday that a lot of people adhere to. You want to over communicate and say, "Hey, Robert, I know next month, we've got our monthly service. Typically, we do it in the third week. We've got Thanksgiving coming up. I just wanted to check with you. If I came on the 23rd, is that going to interfere with any of your holiday plans? Is there anything that, we might need to adjust?"
Yep.
So I want to make sure that I overtly ask the question. Because if I just assume, yes, it's 2 days before, or wait, Thanksgiving is the 25th, right? Is it
I
24th?
think so. I
Probably
have no
whenever it is.
idea.
Let's say it's 2 days before Thanksgiving. I don't want to just assume that that's okay because Robert might be going out of town. He may have taken that whole week off and he's not going to be there and he doesn't want me there when he's gone. Maybe he's going to have 20 people visiting and he
Yep.
doesn't want me to come because everybody's going to be there. And what we don't want is we don't want to have skips. We don't want to miss revenue just because we try to go and they're like, well, sorry, you can't come this week. I've got a bunch of family in town. And
Yep.
then we just don't get to do it that month. That's not good for us. It's not good for the customer. But if we go ahead and over communicate at the beginning, and I asked Robert, and Robert's like, "Yeah, actually, you know what? I do have a lot of people coming into town. I got a lot that I need to do. Could we do it a different time?" Yeah, no problem. I'll do it the week before. We can fit you in. That'll be fine. Or if you want to, just for this month, we'll move it kind of toward the end of the month. Next month, then we'll be back to, a little earlier, just so you're okay with that. So we over communicate, we get it settled. Just think of the major holidays. Again, Thanksgiving and Christmas are the biggest ones because it's usually multiple days that
Hmm.
people take off and usually involves travel or people coming in. So those are the ones that usually get in the way. But any of the holidays, anything that might be going on, um, maybe there's the Super Bowl's in town, right? And
Yeah.
maybe you're maybe your customers are Super Bowl fans, football fans, and that might be something that we don't want to go. Obviously, we're not going to go on Sunday, but
Yep.
they may be. out of town because they're going to the game, or who knows, right? So
Right.
you always, again, it's all about communication. And generally, regardless of holidays, you want to just be communicating. And even if it's a customer that's no muss, no fuss, you go a certain time, you leave them the info, they're never there, it doesn't matter. You still want to call them. You still want to check in with them. Just see how they're doing, see if there's anything going on. So communication is going to really fix all that.
Yeah, and one thing I'll add is I love holiday season for us because it's when I would have so many upsells. I'm calling our customers and telling them, "Hey, we only treat the outside of your house. An extra $50 this month will come and treat the inside in case you have any family coming in town." And if they're hosting, they're gonna say yes. And we're having extra revenue come in. It takes a little bit of time. I would spend a whole day calling every single customer, just trying to upsell, and I highly, highly, highly recommend it. A lot of our house is, our a lot of our customers are gonna be hosting, and if we can go in and spray the inside, spray their kitchens and their bathrooms, their guest rooms, um, make sure that when Aunt Junie comes over, there's no spiders in her bathroom. It's going to be beautiful. So, yeah, I love the holiday season.
And something else I thought of, when you talk about seasonal, my mind immediately went to holidays, but
Of
there
course.
are just general seasonal changes too. If you live in a
Oh yeah, the
area that gets a
winter.
lot of
Yeah.
snow, be aware of that, right? And if you have to check bait stations or if we're doing some type of pest treatment, probably not really doing a lot of good if we're doing an exterior pest control treatment in 15-degree weather, when it's 2 feet of snow outside. A, the bugs aren't outside, they're not moving around. B, the liquid's going to freeze. C, you don't want to trudge through the snow, but and we will if we have to. So
Yeah.
that may be an opportunity to say, hey, I can still come and get that revenue, but I'll schedule an inside visit. If we're just doing pest control,
Hmm.
schedule an inside visit. We can put some baits down. We can do some interior treatments. We can do some other things to still capture that revenue. It'll be more of the manual scheduling, like we talked about. Maybe we try to avoid, but it's either that or give them a service that maybe isn't really doing anything or not get the revenue. So,
Yeah.
maybe do that. Keep in mind if there's like a really rainy season in your area, or if it's super dry and humid, or super dry and hot, those kind of things might make a difference as well. Not just on how we treat things, but also the level of activity that they may see, so we can prepare our customers for that as well.
That's perfect. And that was our last question. I've been working on the CSR, phone training and listening to some of our conversations that we're having. Some are wonderful and some are critter control. What's up? So we're trying to bridge the gap and
Wait, critter control, what's up? Is it
no,
wonderful?
that's not great. That's not what I, or just hello. So, we're trying to bridge the gap there and work with this CSR teams. Many, many, many of them are truly wonderful. So, yeah, no, I appreciate you taking the time, Thomas. I really do. And this is going to help out a lot of people.
Sweet. Yeah, my pleasure.
All right, brother.
Happy to do it anytime.
Thank you, sir. I'll talk to you soon.
Sounds good. Thanks.
Thanks, bud.